There's a moment in every survival story when silence becomes terrifying. The GPS dies, the fire won't start, and the forest suddenly feels infinite. In that moment, stripped of comfort and technology, instinct takes over. But what if our instincts aren't enough anymore? What if the true keys to survival aren't modern gadgets or trendy techniques, but wisdom buried in forgotten military manuals, teachings written by men who survived where no one else could? Those ancient words carried lessons not of theory, but of endurance. They taught soldiers how to outthink hunger, how to use the world as their toolkit, and how to survive when all else failed. Yet today, most of us have replaced that knowledge with dependence on screens, batteries, and convenience. We've traded skill for comfort, and in doing so, lost something essential. In this video, we'll dig into those dusty pages, reviving forgotten methods that turned ordinary men into survivors. You'll learn how to make fire from nothing, build shelter under pressure, and master the invisible power of observation. Because these aren't relics, they're lifelines, waiting for those wise enough to remember them. Long before satellites guided us or modern packs carried our supplies, soldiers were trained to depend on only two things: their mind and their hands. In the brutal conditions of war, survival wasn't a luxury, it was the mission itself. From freezing mountains to endless deserts, their endurance wasn't born from gear, but from a mindset shaped by hardship. These were the original survivalists, forged not by choice, but by necessity. Old military guides documented their experiences meticulously. They described how to navigate without instruments, find food where none seemed to exist, and overcome panic when isolation took hold. To them, survival wasn't about tools, it was about transformation. Every challenge was a test of willpower, and failure simply wasn't an option. Today, much of that legacy has been buried under layers of technology and convenience. But those lessons still matter, perhaps now more than ever. When the grid fails, when the world turns unpredictable, it won't be the latest gadget that saves you. It'll be the ancient wisdom passed down by those who walked through fire and came out alive. Fire has always been more than heat, it's hope. In the field, it keeps soldiers alive, restores morale, and wards off fear. But imagine having to create it with no lighter, no matches, nothing but the world around you. That's the kind of mastery old military survival demanded. Soldiers learned to make flame through friction, sunlight, and metal sparks, using only what nature provided. Each success wasn't luck, it was control reclaimed from chaos. Modern preppers often underestimate this skill, leaning on lighters or ferro rods. But when everything fails, when rain, wind, or panic sets in, those who understand fire at its core hold the real advantage, because it's not about tools, it's about knowing the physics of life itself. Old manuals even documented ways to harness the sun through broken glass, or to catch sparks from rifle parts. Fire represents more than warmth, it's the moment a survivor stops being a victim. It's proof that human will can dominate nature's indifference. When you can summon flame from the wild, you don't just light a fire, you reignite control, confidence, and the primal spark that's kept humanity alive for millennia. Shelter is the first commandment of endurance. When storms rage and temperatures drop, protection becomes survival itself. Old soldiers were taught to construct cover with nothing but instinct and available daylight, branches, leaves, snow, or mud. Efficiency was everything. Conserve energy, act fast, and adapt to terrain. In their manuals, beauty didn't matter, function did. From foxholes dug under enemy fire to lean-tos hidden beneath jungle canopies, every design carried purpose. Each shelter balanced concealment, warmth, and durability, reflecting the simplicity of necessity. While modern campers overpack gear, these soldiers carried knowledge instead, transforming whatever they found into a lifeline. That principle remains timeless. Survival is not about perfection, it's about pragmatism. The best shelter isn't the one that looks impressive, it's the one that stands between you and death. When nature closes in, and comfort disappears, remember this truth: the world already gives you what you need, you just have to see it. Before compasses were common, soldiers learned to read the world itself. The position of moss on trees, the path of stars, the way rivers bend with terrain, all these became guides. In forgotten field guides, navigation was an art, not a device. Soldiers knew that in darkness or fog, instincts refined by observation were more trustworthy than any map. Celestial navigation turned the night sky into a roadmap. The North Star wasn't just a point of light, it was survival condensed into a single reference. Shadows, wind, and even animal behavior offered clues to direction and safety. These techniques required patience and awareness, not batteries. They demanded presence, the kind of focus modern life has dulled. The truth is, technology can fail, but the world never lies. The stars will always rise, rivers will always flow downhill, and nature's patterns never stop speaking. The question is whether you still remember how to listen. In survival, the greatest battlefield isn't the wilderness, it's your own mind. Old military doctrine taught that panic kills faster than hunger or cold. That's why soldiers were trained to stay calm under chaos, to control fear before it controlled them. Through relentless drills, they built resilience until mental strength became instinct. They learned to break despair into small victories, lighting a spark, finding water, marking a trail. Each act of control pushed back against hopelessness. Ancient survival manuals often began with mindset before any skill because they understood, no technique matters if your spirit surrenders. The strongest tool in the field has always been belief. Today, that lesson remains unchanged. Survival begins with acceptance, followed by action. Fear will always whisper lies, but focus silences them. When the storm hits and your world collapses, remember the oldest military secret: stay calm, stay deliberate, stay alive. Awareness was the invisible armor of the soldier. Those trained in ancient survival could sense danger before it arrived, reading subtle signs in nature and behavior. A snapped branch, the direction of smoke, the rhythm of the forest all carried messages. To the untrained, invisible; to the prepared, obvious. Old manuals taught the four states of awareness: relaxed, alert, focused, and reactive. The goal was balance, never paranoid, but never blind. Soldiers honed observation like a weapon, scanning patterns, sounds, and movement constantly. Their safety depended not on luck, but on vigilance, sharpened through repetition. In today's world, this skill is vanishing. Distraction has replaced perception. Yet those who reclaim it, whether in a city street or a mountain trail, gain an edge no technology can replicate. Awareness doesn't just prevent danger, it predicts it. Resourcefulness was the soul of military survival. When supply lines broke and tools ran out, creativity became the difference between life and death. Soldiers learned to make blades from scrap metal, hooks from wire, ropes from torn fabric. Nothing was useless, everything had potential. Improvisation wasn't desperation, it was power. Old manuals are filled with brilliance, using boot polish as fire starter, shaping bone into needles, purifying water with heated stones. These weren't hacks, they were proofs of human ingenuity under pressure. In survival, invention replaces equipment, and the mind becomes the ultimate multi-tool. The lesson is eternal. Tools are temporary, but creativity is infinite. When the world strips you bare, your imagination becomes your arsenal. The survivor, isn't the one who packs the most hit, the one who thinks the fastest. The techniques of old are not obsolete, they're foundational. Every modern survival tactic is built on their bones. Firecraft, navigation, shelter all stem from those first lessons written in ink and blood. Even elite forces today still train in principles drawn from those manuals, because nature hasn't changed, and neither have human limits. In a future where technology dominates, these analog skills are more valuable than ever. When satellites fall silent or power grids collapse, knowledge becomes the only renewable resource. Those who understand primitive methods will not just endure, they will lead. To forget the past is to surrender the future. Ancient soldiers didn't survive because they had more, they survived because they needed less. That truth, once learned, never expires. These are more than stories, they're blueprints for endurance. The flame, the shelter, the focus, the calm, each one a piece of wisdom carved through hardship. These skills saved lives on battlefields long forgotten, but their power endures in every person willing to learn them. What you've heard today isn't nostalgia survival stripped to its essence. In a world racing toward dependency, those who honor simplicity will thrive. Every spark you create, every shelter you raise, every moment of awareness connects you to a lineage of resilience. So carry their legacy. Because someday, when everything fails, it won't be your gear that saves you. It'll be your knowledge, your will, and the forgotten wisdom of those who refuse to quit. Their legacy is now yours.